How I Learned to Stop Worrying About the Roth IRA 5-Year Rules. Hi, this is financial planner Sean Mullaney. Let's discuss. So, my most recent blog post is on something that causes a world of confusion. The two 5-year clocks on Roth IRAs. 5-year rules, 5-year clocks. You use the nomenclature you like, right? No, nothing specific there. My overarching thesis on these two 5-year rules is this. They get way too much attention. They rarely actually apply, right? You look at the rules, you say they're daunting, they seem to have wide scope, and it turns out they actually don't even apply all that much. So this blog post spends too many words going into it. I want to give you sort of the director's cut of this blog post so you can walk away rest assured that you probably don't have to lose sleep tonight about the two Roth IRA 5-year rules. What I've done in this blog post is this summary chart. I think this summary chart is helpful. Is this the answer to every last tax question about Roth IRAs? No. But this covers a lot of the waterfront, right? What I'd recommend to folks is look at this chart, see if your particular fact pattern appears to sort of go with what this chart is saying, and then do your own analysis and research. I'm not here to give you tax advice in this video or this blog post, but this particular chart sort of boils it down, and I think it is a great launching point in terms of understanding what's going on with these 5-year rules and how they might impact you. They're basically two 5-year rules. The first one deals with Roth IRA earnings. It only applies to Roth IRA earnings. We'll talk about that in a second. And it only bites in most cases if you're over age 59 and a half. How crazy is that? That's just the way the tax rules are. I didn't write these rules, folks. I'm just analyzing them, right? So, don't blame me. But literally this first 5-year clock, which says you can't get earnings from a Roth IRA tax-free, it only bites if we're over age 59 and a half and we have not had a Roth IRA for 5 years, in most cases. We'll explain that. And then the second rule deals with Roth conversions. This one generally only bites if we're under age 59 and a half. And not only generally, it only bites if we're under age 59 and a half. And it's only going to trigger the 10% early withdrawal penalty. This is not about paying income tax. This is just about that one penalty, the 10% early withdrawal penalty. By the way, if you live in California, add 2.5% as a state early withdrawal penalty. So us Californians have a little more skin in the game on this particular rule. All right, let's go through the first 5-year rule. It's an earnings rule, right? And that actually brings us to one of my overarching points is this. There are ordering rules for distributions from a Roth IRA, and they are very taxpayer favorable, right? It is what it is. Look at the code. By the way, I've linked to the code in the relevant regulation here in this table, but look to the code. Generally speaking, distributions come out of conversions first. Those are always withdrawn tax and penalty free. Only then do they come out of conversions. Those are first in, first out. That's very favorable for taxpayers. And only after all previous contributions, all previous conversions are exhausted, do we get to earnings. And so this first earnings rule basically says if you haven't had a Roth IRA for over 5 years, at least 5 years, you can't take a tax-free distribution of earnings. But remember those ordering rules. It's hard to even access those earnings. And oh, by the way, if you're under 59 and a half, in most cases, this 5-year rule is totally irrelevant. Why? Because you can't get to those earnings tax-free because you're under 59 and a half. And I've got two examples. I've got Ernestine and Hortense, right? Using the popular names today. Basically, they make one and only one annual contribution when they're age 25 in the year 2023. Okay, great. They then let that sit in the Roth IRA. Ernestine is a little impatient. She is 25 when she makes the contribution. 3 years later, she withdraws the entire contribution and the $1,500 of earnings. What result? She pays tax and the 10% penalty on the $1,500 of earnings. Okay, not smart. Well, what about Hortense? Hortense is the same situation, but she's got a little more patience. She waits not 3 years, but 7 years to get that money. So she meets the 5-year rule. Is there any difference in their taxation? No, right? The 5-year rule is irrelevant, right? Because they're both under 59 and a half. So they both have to pay the tax and the penalty on the earnings, regardless of whether they meet the 5-year rule. So this 5-year rule sort of has no impact if we're under 59 and a half. In order to show you when the 5-year rule could actually bite and tax someone on a withdrawal of earnings, I had to come up with two sort of crazy examples, right? They involve 58-year-olds who make one and only one contribution to a Roth IRA in their entire life, and one fellow, Ernie, takes the money out before he meets the 5-year rule. He's 61 years old, doesn't meet the 5-year rule. Then he's subject to ordinary tax on the earnings. Harry is the exact same as Ernie, but now he meets the 5-year rule by withdrawing at age 65. He has a qualified distribution, no problem. So this shows you, though, when the 5-year rule bites for the first 5-year rule, and it's essentially only if we're over age 59 and a half. And look, it only bites on the earnings, which it's hard to get out. And you got to remember, too, Ernie and Harry and Ernestine and Hortense, I've given you extreme examples. Most folks who are tuned to personal finance and Roth IRAs probably have years of contributions and or conversions built up before they even take distributions from a Roth IRA. So it's probably going to be academic, even to that degree, even if they don't meet the 5-year rule, because they can always take those contributions tax and penalty free. I've got a whole gray box on that here. I've said it before, I'll say it again. You could always take out those previous contributions tax and penalty free, though you probably don't want to, because you probably want to let that sit in there for tax and penalty free growth. All right, so that's the first 5-year rule. I'll give you two little nuggets on that first 5-year rule. One, there's an inherited Roth IRA twist to it. This deals with the very unlucky situation. You have someone who dies within the first 5 years of having established a Roth IRA. That's step one. And then two, their beneficiary takes the money within that 5-year window before the full 5 years have passed, and accesses earnings. So you could have an inherited Roth IRA where you'd pay taxes, but boy, that's a very unlucky situation. Most folks will make their first IRA contribution hopefully in their 20s or 30s. But look, it's never too late, right? If you have earned income, you could consider it, right? You meet the MAGI limit and whatnot. But most people who establish a Roth IRA for the first time are relatively young. So the odds that they will die before the 5-year clock expiring are very low. But there's this little twist. And basically, my blog post sort of proves out that absent rare circumstances, the 5-year rule only applies to those over 59 and a half. So we might as well just get rid of it, right? If Congress is watching this video, please click that like button if you are Congress, and everybody out there, click that like button. It helps the channel. But my overall point obtains. If this rule barely applies, because those under 59 and a half can't get a qualified distribution anyway, might as well just repeal it, right? It has very little impact on the taxation of Roth IRA distributions. So I would just recommend make the code just a little shorter, repeal the particular subsection D2P of the Roth IRA rule, just get rid of it. All right. Now let's go to the second 5-year rule. This is the taxable conversions. They are subject to the 10% early withdrawal penalty if withdrawn from the Roth IRA within 5 taxable years of the conversion. This makes a lot of sense, and it actually has nothing to do with Roth IRAs, although that's where this shows up. It's to protect traditional IRAs and traditional 401ks. Without this rule, anyone under age 59 and a half could reach back and just say, you know what, I need some money out of my traditional IRA. I don't like that 10% penalty. I'm willing to pay the tax. I don't like that 10% penalty. Without this rule, they can say, I don't even have a Roth IRA. Screw it. I will just convert, pay the tax, and then a day or two later take it from the Roth IRA, and I just got to round the penalty. So that's what this is doing. This is sort of protecting the 10% early withdrawal penalty as it applies to traditional IRAs, traditional 401ks, those sorts of things. It's a logical rule, right? Congress has a vested interest in folks not raiding their retirement accounts. I think this actually does make some sense. But here's the thing. It rarely applies, and I would argue mostly because of the ordering rules. So let's think about it, right? What comes out first? All the prior contributions. A lot of folks have prior contributions. What comes out second? First in, first out, FIFO conversions. So if you have a 10-year-old conversion, a 7-year-old conversion, and a 3-year-old conversion, yeah, the 3-year-old conversion subject to this second 5-year Roth IRA clock if you haven't met the if you're under 59 and a half, but you access in your distributions the contributions first, then the 10-year-old conversion in my example, then the 7-year-old conversion, and only once all three of those amounts would be exhausted would you actually access that 3-year-old conversion, in which case you'd be subject to the 10-year penalty. And some folks out there like this idea of the so-called Roth conversion ladder. So I have an example in this blog post of someone who retires at age 50 and basically made annual contributions to Roth IRA in their 30s and then did backdoor Roth IRAs in their 40s. And so what that does is that leaves them with 79,000 of old contributions and conversions that they could access at the moment they retire, and then they can add to it that so-called what do they call it? The Roth conversion ladder, right? So they're going to have a lot of basis built up, and backdoor Roths, by the way, work pretty well with the 5-year rule. They can create, I refer to as a micro layer. In my little example, we could have $2 that could be subject to the 10% penalty, which by my math comes out to a 20-cent penalty. I hope your financial future is not imperiled by paying a 20-cent penalty, but hey, you got to assess your own circumstances. But I guess my point is, look, is this second 5-year rule a thing? Absolutely. But most folks, just based on their own built-up history, are never going to, touch this. And yes, could it happen? Sure. But in a general sense, most non-qualified distributions from a Roth IRA tend to be tax-free because they tend to be recovery of favored contributions and even older conversions. And then don't overthink it. There are different ways to get a qualified distribution from a Roth IRA, but the main one is this. If you have a person, or if you yourself are 59 and a half or older, and you've had a Roth IRA for 5 years, you're done, right? These two 5-year clocks go out in the trash. You will never be subject to them. You can't be if you meet these two criteria, which is a lot of Americans when they're, a lot of Americans won't touch their Roth IRA until age 59 and a half or older. And, oh, by the way, by that point, they may have had it for decades, not 5 years. So don't overthink it. These rules are out there. And, I'm a personal finance nerd. I bet you might be because you're watching this video. Don't overthink it. It's perfectly cromulent to proceed with your financial planning without losing too much sleep over the two Roth IRA 5-year rules. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching this video, and please mash that like button and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you next time.